Welcome back to the Stay Busy Boxing YouTube channel. I'm Cameron, and today we're starting a brand new series all about developing our defense. And the reason I decided to make this into a series instead of one long-form video is that there really are many different versions of defense. So this video is going to focus on footwork. Then the next video is going to focus on head movement. The third video is going to focus on blocking and parrying. And the last one, we're going to tie it all together with some counter-punching off all of that. But I think it's important we take the time to kind of shine the spotlight on each aspect of defense to make sure we're not just understanding what we can do, but why we're doing it and how we're going to take it with us as we continue down this defensive journey. I don't want you to make the same mistake I did when I first started. When I wanted to learn defensive work, especially the footwork part of it, I used to go find all these crazy drills where guys are crossing their feet and they're doing spins and all this stuff that's unnecessary. I was doing those drills and then wondering why when I went into sparring, I didn't feel like my footwork was any better. So we're gonna keep this very basic. Once I started doing some of these more specific drills that I knew would translate into the actual action, my level picked up so much quicker. So I know some of it's monotonous, some of it's boring, but if we really want to improve, we need to mimic what we're going to do in the ring. Before we get into the actual footwork drills we'll be working on today, I want to go over a few basic rules that we should always keep in the back of our head when we're working on our defense. And the first rule I want to speak about is understanding how much we need to be doing. So if I'm in my stance, this line down the middle of me is considered the line of fire, which is basically what they're aiming at. So if I'm going to take a step back, I don't necessarily need to go way far back. I can go just here. If I'm going to slip step, I don't need to throw it far. I can just slip step. As long as we move enough for their punches to get off the line of fire, we're going to be safe and we're going to be able to make another movement. The second rule is understanding that based on what punch you throw is going to dictate what direction you can move. If I punch with my right hand, I'm moving to the right. If I punch with my left hand, I'm moving to the left after. And this is because based on what your opponent can catch and shoot or parry back towards you, it's always going to be off a block or a parry. So if I throw my jab at somebody, we know the number one parry for a jab is a little parry and then two over the top. So if I move my head to the right when that two comes, he has another hand he can punch at me. But if I move to the left, that's his power hand throwing, and he's nothing over here he can hit us with. So basically, by moving the direction I threw, I made sure there was less things that could potentially come back at me afterwards and was able to move myself to safety. And the last thing is same with punching. We need to focus on staying loose. We need to focus on our breathing, and we need to worry about staying calm. On defense, as soon as you start panicking, you're going to tighten up and it's going to limit your movement and it's going to limit how quick you can think, and it's just going to be a bad time. But if you can get used to staying calm under pressure and under fire, then you'll be able to use your boxing IQ along with the movements you know to get yourself to safety and potentially even respond on the attack yourself. The last thing I want to touch on is how often we work on our defense. I've spent a lot of time in a bunch of different gyms, and it is very little normally talked about defense and working on things that are purely defensive. I mean, if you think about it, it's 50-50. You're either attacking or you're defending. And a lot of people really like to focus on the attack because it's fun. You get to hit people or things, but you know what? I hate getting hit more than I like hitting somebody else. I don't know about you, but I get mad when I get hit a whole bunch. So take your time to work on your defense. It will be worth it in the end. The first drill we're going to work on is mostly just forward and backward movement with a side step here and there. If you're brand new, this is your first real footwork drill, just move in your stance. Make sure we're keeping that chin tucked. Make sure that we keep our eyes up the best we can. We're going to go over and then all the way back. Try to make our steps as similar as they can every time. Now what I don't want to see is a step like this, where your heel goes down first. I understand as humans, when we walk, our heel goes down first. But right now, we're not just humans, we're boxers, which means we need to move like a boxer. So you need to keep your weight evenly distributed on the balls of your feet. And you should be touching down with the ball of your foot on your step, first thing, every time. It's gonna take a while before you feel like you're not just stepping all awkward, but if you stick with this drill and do it over and over and over, eventually you're just gonna get quicker, and eventually it'll start to look like the next progression of it, which is the shuffle. So once you've been working on that for a while with the step, eventually you'll notice it'll start to translate into more of a shuffle, where it's not as much of a step, it's like you're sliding your foot. And it'll be kind of like this, right? You're still pushing yourself with that back foot forward and you're just sliding the front foot forward. And then when you get to a side, I'm expecting you to slip step at this point. So we're gonna slip step over and then shuffle backwards. And going backwards is the same thing. You're pushing with your front foot and sliding your back foot. So you can go forward, you can go backwards. That's all it is. That's the only real progression there is on this. Eventually you'll be able to move through it nice and quick, and you're not even gonna have to think about it. We can get rid of the cones. We'll just, 2 or 3 minutes before we're warming up every day, just get those legs warmed up. You'll just start working on it. Something else I just thought of is I can almost tell you right away how good someone's footwork will be by watching them jump rope. And the reason this is because they don't even have to be good at jumping rope. It's the amount they move their feet. So I use my jump rope to improve my footwork a lot, and it's not even because I'm jumping. What happens is I can jump rope all day personally, but let's say I mess up. I keep bouncing, I keep moving, I don't stop. And the reason that is because I understand that the reason we're jumping rope is to get used to moving our feet for that long, staying up on your toes, because you don't jump rope flat-footed, right? Same with your boxing. You're not walking flat-footed, you're moving on your toes. So it's an endurance exercise more than anything. So if you're one of these guys that jumps rope and you mess up and then you stand and you look at it and you have to readjust, there's no point. I would rather you just lose the rope completely and just bounce around, just jump around, because you have to get a certain amount of ankle stiffness and a certain amount of endurance of moving on the balls of your foot to be effective with your footwork. And the exact thing can be said about doing your road work. I understand no one wants to get out first thing in the morning and run your miles. It sucks, but if you do it every day for 2 weeks, eventually it'll just become easy. It'll become second nature, and it's just gonna be another part of your day. And you would be so surprised if I could explain how quick I've seen guys improve, and the only change they made to their training was making sure at least 4 or 5 days a week they got out and did the road work. Next drill is gonna involve a movement called a pivot. There's 2 ways you can pivot. You can go backside, or you can go front side. But whichever way you pivot, we need to make sure our weight is, again, on the balls of our feet. If you do it on your heel, you're off balance. You can take a very light jab if you're off balance and you will go down, and that counts as a knockdown. So we need to make sure that the technique on this is right. And for this drill, all we're gonna do is pick a spot and we're gonna circle around it and we're gonna step back and pivot, re-engage. The reason that we're going to circle around this is because it's more like what we do in a fight, right? In boxing, although we call it a ring, it's a square. So if you just go backwards too much, eventually you're gonna hit some ropes or a corner. In either one of those, you're at a disadvantage because there's one direction you can no longer move, right? So whenever we're working some of these quick move and get out, we need to be working in a circle leading up to it. And the reason the pivot is nice is because you can do a big pivot or you can do a little pivot. It doesn't matter. There's still angle changes, and depending on which one you choose, will give you different options of what you can do after it. In the same way we worked the backside pivot, we can work the front side pivot. Now, it is a much more, I don't know what it is. In my brain and a lot of guys' brains, it feels like a much harder movement, but it's not. Just most of the time, you just need to take a step before. So if we're circling, this time to the right, we're gonna step and pivot in. Another angle change. Circle, circle, step and pivot. Learning to use your pivots at the right time is a pretty daunting task, because if you do it wrong, it puts you in kind of an awkward position to get punched. But using them not only as a defensive tool, but to eventually turn into a counterattack is a really good skill to have. And like I said, we'll be talking about counter punching in the last video of this series, but just know, a lot of people skip over their pivots, don't use them that much. I highly recommend you get comfortable with them as soon as you can. This next drill I like to call the Coach Joe special because my Coach Joe makes me do it all the time, because I had this very big issue of not breathing when I was starting to get really put under fire on defense. I would almost like I said earlier, I would tighten up, I would hold my breath, and it would be not very effective. So first off, he wanted to teach me lateral movement, because when I got back up against the ropes, because I'm a tall fighter, I fight a lot of pressure guys, I need to use my feet, get on my bike, and move around, right? So we're gonna learn that with the drill. But the other thing is learning how to breathe, okay? So we're gonna do that by counting out loud, because if you're speaking, you're breathing. So the drill goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1. And that's the most basic variation of the drill. Now there are ways we can also take this up a progression, and one way that would be is by forcing us to do more shifts. So instead of just each time the number goes down, going from right to left, I could go right, more shifts. And if you mix them up, sometimes doing one cut, sometimes doing 3 or 4 cuts, it's gonna be hard for someone to track you in a fight. The other thing we can do is every now and then, keep our hands up, you can just parry a little. Nothing too complex, but that's still another level, because that means we're thinking about the punches being thrown at us while we're working on our footwork. And eventually we need to put it all together, right? So this is just another step closer to that. This last drill isn't even really a drill. It's more just shadow boxing with a little bit of direction, right? I like to keep the grid out, because although we know there's a time and place for everything in boxing, sometimes you'll take big steps, sometimes you'll take small steps. When we're focusing on developing our stance, we really need it to be solid every time. So all we're gonna do is just flow around, use these motions that we know and maneuver through. If you hit a cone here and there, it's okay, don't worry about it. Don't wanna break the cycle. We're just trying to get used to using these movements and combining them in our head, right? So we're just me stepping forward, stepping back, L step if you know how. Work around, couple steps up, slip step, backwards, pivot. Work around, step through pivot, double step up, right step, slip step, forward, pivot, pivot, L step. Whatever you gotta do, just get comfortable. Start combining these defensive movements in your head to where they're just muscle memory. You'll notice they'll start to translate when you're under fire in the ring. You really need to get to a point where you trust your feet and you trust your defense. And that's gonna wrap us up for our first episode of our defensive developmental series. If you're excited for the next episode, it's gonna be on head movement, and we're gonna tie it into all the footwork we talked about today. Drop a sub so you don't miss that for sure. If you learned something, please leave a comment and let me know. I wanna know exactly what was helpful for you. But besides that, enjoy the rest of your day, stay safe, and don't forget to stay busy.